Hey guys, so in today's video I'm going to be teaching you how you can improve different aspects of your aim, such as crosshair placement, holding angles, and tapping versus spraying, as well as a variety of other things throughout this deathmatch VOD review of myself. But quickly before we start, if you'd like to get a VOD review similar to this, you can reach out to me on Discord. You can find my Discord down in the description below. I'll give you a high quality coaching session. And guys, let's go ahead and get right into the VOD here. So basically, one thing worth mentioning as we start is realize that your weaknesses with aim are probably not my weaknesses. You might have some overlap with my weaknesses. One weakness that I have throughout this game is that I struggle with spraying, so I spray whenever I should be like controlling my aim a little bit better. And that's really just lack of playing for me recently. And so that can be refined pretty easily, but for you, you might struggle with crosshair placement. Again, crosshair placement is like really massive. And that's something you really want to make sure that you're focusing on throughout deathmatch, right? Especially because if you're just playing deathmatch because I told you to play deathmatch, or because you're like, oh, I heard someone say like play deathmatch, then you're not really getting the most out of it. You're not really focusing on specifically what you need to be improving, and that's extremely important. So one thing you guys are gonna notice me do right here after I kill this guy is I never pretend like I know exactly where the enemies are. I'm always shifting my crosshair around here. So unless I see someone on my screen, then I'm always guessing where the next person's gonna be. See, like to the left, to the right, and I turn around because I hear someone. And don't be afraid to turn your back to people in deathmatch. It's not too big of a deal, especially in deathmatch. Just get comfortable like taking fights here. Just kind of trolling this guy. I should have just shot him, to be honest, but here's an example of holding an angle. So guys, let's go and make a distinction between holding an angle and then not holding angles. So what might be not holding an angle? This is just swinging or just running around like you might be doing. Now, holding an angle, you shouldn't do this a whole lot in deathmatch, but if you know someone is right around the corner from where you're at, you can hold it for a few seconds, see if they're going to peek. And this can be an extremely valuable tool to have in comp, and I'll point out some more examples of this as we go through this VOD here. Holding angles can be really useful because, you know, your enemy might not expect it, especially if you're in a spot that's not typically where someone's going to be holding an angle from. And especially in like a 1v1 or a situation or something like that.
Finished.
Excuse me. And sometimes you spawn in horrible spots in deathmatch, which is completely fine. Also, you're going to notice sometimes the way that I peek angles, I'm going to be like very kind of meticulous, but this is deathmatch, so I'm not always super meticulous. Great spawn there. Love to see it. So here I'm always placing my crosshair, right? I'm always placing my crosshair. Where's the next enemy going to be? Where's the next enemy going to be? You don't know. Not every enemy you see, and even in deathmatch, is going to make noise. Especially in comp, not every enemy around you is going to be making noise. So you have to be predicting or calculating where's the next enemy going to be, right? I also don't like walking too much. So here's a great example of holding an angle, right? Because I don't know if you guys can hear him, but I can hear him here. I hear him running. And so instead of like starting to run forward toward him or something, I decide to just sit and hold the angle because I hear him running, right? He's running. He's being predictable. I can hear his footsteps. And so if someone's just running in and someone's just running around in a comp game, you can post up, hold an angle like this. This is not a very common angle to be held, right? So even though he's looking directly at me, he's probably not like, oh, there's going to be someone right here. He might be, but you know, he just kind of gets cut off. So there's another example of holding an angle. Let me just go back one more time. Just because you see, like, he heard me shoot, and he knows I'm around this area, but you see, whenever he peeks, he's actually kind of not looking directly at me. He's looking a little bit to my left, and this is why holding angles, this is what holding off angles means, right? And this is definitely a crucial aspect of aim, but it's also an important aspect of positioning. If you position at an angle to where the person's not looking at you, but you see them and you can shoot them in the head, it's just very easy. Here I'm a little bit confused, being ring around the rosy again. Here again, I never pretend like I know exactly where the enemy's gonna be. I'm always looking to the next spot for where they might be. You're gonna notice that I do have a problem with spraying this game. ADSing is good, by the way, for longer distances if you would like.
That's done.
So here I know this is another example of holding an angle because I saw her cross. She probably isn't gonna come back because it's been a few seconds, so I know she's gonna be here. Pretty easy kill. And you see at longer distances, I do like to tap as well. I'm always, you you know, whenever I say like I'm always predicting where the enemy's gonna be, this is an example of what I mean by crosshair placement, right? Crosshair placement means that you're constantly trying to predict where the enemy is going to be, even whenever you don't have information or you can't hear them or you don't know of their whereabouts. You still are trying to kind of predict that. This is another example of holding an angle, but there unfortunately he kind of strafes back, so my prediction is a little bit off with my crosshair. There again, I have just a pretty good sense. You have to also take into account, guys, right? Whenever you're on different maps, I know Breeze is not in the pool right now, but it doesn't really matter for this, what we're doing here. We have to take into account that there's a D elevation here, right? There's a slope, it goes down. And so on pretty much every map, there's going to be, there's no single map in this game that is just flat. Every map has elevations, has high ground spots, has, you know, spots you can updraft or whatever onto. There are decline spots, right? So if you're high up, then you're gonna have to be looking down, and if you're just on the middle ground like this, you have to be looking down as well. And this is something you need to take into account, especially whenever you are aiming, because if you just look straight forward, it seems kind of obvious, but you really, you know, it's really one thing to think it's obvious, but also it's a different thing to just do it all the time and have good cross placement. You see, mine could be even better here, but I'm close enough to where it's just kind of an easy kill. Here's what I'm talking about by spraying. This is just bad spraying. If I was playing better here, I would just be tapping instead of spraying. It's just kind of reckless on my part as well.
Impeccable kill.
So tapping, holding angles, crosshair placement, these are the main things we've seen so far. All very important. There's another spray. Spraying is okay, don't get me wrong, with the Vandal, but only at close ranges, really. Close to very close medium ranges.
Got 3.
Okay. And one other thing that we can practice here is something you don't see me doing a whole lot right now, but I definitely should be doing this, is instead of just, you guys see how I swing around the corner like this, just in one fluid movement? Instead of doing that, what I should do is, because I already know that there's going to be one to the left, I should be like AD, 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 so I'm going back and forth around the corner, and it's called slicing the pie. You guys have heard me talk about this before. You should do that until you see where they are, because you don't know exactly where this Astra is going to be. And you see, this is what gets me killed here, because I'm pulling out my gun. But that's a much more meticulous way that you can take fights. And you might see me do that a couple times, but I don't do it like a whole lot, which is okay. You don't always have to do that, but it is good. It's better in comp, just because, you know, comp's higher stakes. Rounds are gonna be, people are gonna be hiding, you know, so it's gonna be much better to clear stuff out in that way. Here I just run around the whole map, don't see anyone.
I'll feed us in.
There's another example of a spray that I don't need to be doing. I should just take the time to try to reset my aim there and, you know, take an easier shot. Okay. There's another example of spraying. So that's definitely my biggest weakness. Now this probably, to be honest with you guys, is not your biggest weakness. Spraying is not really, I mean, some people do have a problem with crouch spraying, but I fortunately don't have crouch bound right now. But for most people, for most of you guys, I would say the biggest problem that you're going to have is probably crosshair placement. So whenever you're coming into deathmatch, just make sure you're actively focusing on that. For me, since I struggle with spraying, like if I were to play some more deathmatch, I would really emphasize tapping and bursting rather than spraying. And if I catch myself spraying, it's just a matter of being conscious of it, right? If you're conscious that you're spraying, you can very quickly adjust that, and it makes it a lot easier.
10 kills remaining.
So there you see a guy crouch spraying. That's exactly why it's not good. So here's another example. Sorry to be pausing a lot, but I think it's pretty informative. Here's another example. I'm just trying to go for this health. What I should do is this is where you should either hold an angle or be meticulous and do that jiggle peek kind of clear that I was talking about with the Astra earlier. And that makes this a lot more likely for you to live, because he can just hear you running in a straight line. He can just wait and he's gonna kill you. Here's an example of holding an angle, but then I realized he's not gonna come back, so I stopped holding it.
Got one.
Again, I hear him, right? So I stop and I just hold the angle. Holding angles is extremely underrated. let me go back real quick. What I think a lot of you guys might do, I hear him, so I instantly shift my focus there. If I heard nobody, I wouldn't be holding this angle. But what I think a lot of you guys might do after hearing him is just keep running, and then you're going to give your position away, and it's going to make the fight more even. Whereas here, as long as he runs over here, it's going to make this fight a lot more in my favor as long as I can aim. Which, you see, I am able at least a little bit to.
5 kills remaining.
Got 3. Oh.
Yeah, you can't teach that, but just click their heads, you know. Another example of holding an angle. I could have definitely spammed the box right there, by the way. Sorry. Right here, because I hear him. I could spam the corner right here and then move my crosshair over. But I knew he was gonna come over because I could just hear him running.
1 kill remaining.
They're, again, trying to spray there. It's just not going to work out too well. Again, trying to spray. I'm just trying to close the game out too quickly, and if I just took my time and tapped, it would be a lot easier. So, guys, there's the end of the game. I end up winning. So main takeaways from this one: make sure you're conscious of what your weaknesses are. Focus, especially crosshair placement. No matter what rank you are, even if you're higher ranked than me right now, crosshair placement is always something that you want to work on. It's always something that can be useful. Every map has high ground spots. Go into a custom game, practice where different high ground spots are that you think are common. So, you know, if like the new map Lotus, where are some high ground spots that people are going to be playing, and then practice actually incorporating that into your aim. You know, don't spray, tap, and burst unless only spray for closer ranges. Hold angles is extremely valuable. But yeah, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any questions down below. Get coaching from me down below. See you in the next video. Peace.